Raising A.T., Tom, and Mark was really a blast. We always had fun, but it was a very fast-paced life. They were always adventurous, rough, and kind of tumble kind of guys. They were best friends. They played together all the time. When they were little, they used to play outside our apartment complex, and they would go up and down the apartment complex sidewalk. Tom would ride a big wheel. He loved his big wheel. He could get anywhere on that thing. But Mark and A.T. preferred a bicycle. They would go up to a little convenience store across the street and get treats once in a while. They were very creative. One day they wanted to go sledding, and they didn't have a sled, so they took laundry baskets and plastic laundry baskets and got inside the laundry baskets and went down the hill outside our apartment. They used to love to play Monster, and they would just hide on each other, and then the monster would have to get them. And one day I was actually assistant manager at the apartment complex, and a lady called me and said that there was a child outside her bedroom window, and he had been growling for at least a half hour. Right away I knew it was probably Tom, because he was really a good monster. And I went over there, and there he was, and so we kind of gathered the kids and brought him closer to home. They used to play with Peter Justier, who lived at the other end of the complex. His mom was a good friend of mine, and they used to play together all the time. As they got a little bit older, we moved to Barneveld, and when we lived in Barneveld, we built a house in the country. There were on 20 acres, there were woods. For at least 19 of those acres were woods. And A.T., Tom, and Mark would go out in those woods and play all day long. They built forts. They just had adventures in the woods. And one thing I remember, I always used to think they were kind of close to home, but one day they went more than a couple miles from home, and they were playing near a pond. And this was in the dead of winter, and Mark fell in, got his feet wet. And A.T. and Tom had to carry him home because he couldn't walk. His feet were frozen. So I know that they had some adventures that I probably don't know anything about, but I know that they were outside playing every single day. When we moved to Middleton, Wisconsin, after living in Barneveld, we lived in an apartment complex, and again I worked for the complex, and I used to clean apartments, and we would change light bulbs, and the kids would go with me, and once a week we'd walk around and change light bulbs for the apartment complex. And while I was cleaning apartments, they would play outside and go swimming. There was a swimming pool. I'd watch them at the swimming pool, and they used to love to walk up across the street to another convenience store and get treats. And on Sunday mornings, while they were sleeping, I'd kind of sneak up to the convenience store, and I would buy all of us filled Long John. It was a huge Long John with chocolate frosting, filled with white frosting, and then white frosting on top of the chocolate frosting in little swirls. And I don't know, I think it even had a cherry on top. So we would eat those on Sunday mornings when we woke up. So that was kind of like our little special treat. This was, again, it was just so much fun raising A.T., Tom, and Mark, but I know that God protected them throughout their childhood and into their teens. Some things were just scary that happened in our lives. Tom was in a plane crash. His plane's engine went out when the plane was at 5,000 feet, and the pilot, who was a friend of ours, he was going up north to visit their cabin, and he guided the plane into a orchard near Madison, Wisconsin. It came down in the orchard, flipped over, and no one was seriously injured. Tom, however, went to the hospital, and they discovered that his neck was either broken or had never actually, his odontoid process had never fused as a child. Well, it turned out that the latter was true, that as a child, his neck had probably cracked during childbirth, or shortly after, and it had never fused. So God was with him during his lifetime while he was in wrestling and football and all the activities he was in, that he saved him from injury or death because of that situation. So Tom had that fixed and wore a halo cast for a while in school, and is doing fine now. But that was a really scary time. A.T. was electrocuted when he was playing ditch with Tom and Mark. And ditch is when you're trying to ditch your friends and hide on them so they can't find you. And A.T. and Mark decided the best way to ditch their friends was to climb a pine tree that was taller than the rooftops. And they climbed up the pine tree, but unfortunately it was also higher than the electrical wires. A.T. got the electrical wires caught in his legs, and Mark was right below him. The electrical wires were burning his legs, and even as a young child, upper elementary grade, he had a decision to make on whether to grab the wires off of his leg, or Mark could have grabbed the wires off of his leg, or to just drop out of the tree. He dropped out of the tree, fell to the ground, and kind of was out for a few seconds, and then his friends brought him home. But God was certainly with him that day. If he had grabbed the wires, it would have killed him. If Mark had grabbed the wires, it would have killed both of them. So God certainly protected them. Mark, at the age of 8, had surgery on his knee from a biking accident and was in the hospital at a very young age with surgery. So I know that God protected them and had a plan for their lives. And I'm so very thankful for that. I've really had a very blessed life. I had a great childhood. My parents were wonderful. My mom was always around. She was always with us. She made fantastic meals. She always made us feel loved and just very, very loved and comfortable. My dad was great. He worked very hard. I do remember that on weekends when my mom had to take a nap with my younger brothers and sisters, my dad would take us to my sister and I, Mary, to the country club or to the VFW and just let us run around and play. He'd give us money for games and buy us Cokes and snacks, and we just had a blast. But I had a very blessed childhood. Great brothers and sisters. I loved them very much. We played all the time. Got into our fights and arguments, but just a great, great family, and I love all of them very much. Then I got married and had 3 fantastic kids, A.T., Tom, and Mark. And as they grew up, they married the most beautiful women in the world, Marcy, Jen, and Kathy. So again, our family's just blessed. And then I had 6 grandchildren: Jess, Stephen, Sam, Olivia, Laura, and Becca. And I may have more. We just don't know what life's going to bring. And if we do, I love you too. But I love all of you so much. I hope you never, ever forget that. I think it's, can we stop there?